True Zenoiran difficulty in Unicorn Overlord is described by the game itself as being for those who wish to know the despair of unceasing torture. That is a very scary sounding challenge, but one which I decided to take on. Now, I've only gone a few hours into True Zenoiran so far, but it is definitely more challenging. Enemies hit harder, assists will demolish you if you aren't prepared for them, recovery is limited to 5 item uses per battle, and unoptimized units will lose more often than not. In fact, True Zenoiran really brings the tactics system and team synergies to the forefront. I've found that I have to change up my units and optimize them for each specific battle and its challenges, much more so than I ever needed to do when playing on lower difficulties. For an example of this, in the battle where we are introduced to Oclese, I had to build units specifically meant to take out archers as fast as possible, or there was no winning. You couldn't just push through and take the assist damage from enemies, as it was far too devastating. So I put 2 knights with a griffin knight so they could fly over the river and flank the archers, while Oclese's unit did its thing on the other archer towers. Even with this strategy though, I had to watch the position of the spawning archer units, because if one could hit Oclese's unit, its usefulness, Oclese's unit that is, was pretty much gone. Oclese would go down and the unit would be dying, and I didn't have enough items to restore them, so it was a huge problem. So you can't just send your units out and let them do their thing. You have to constantly keep an eye out for assisting units or other complications that at lower difficulties might have been a nuisance, but on True Zenoiran could spell the end for your units. Another point to keep in mind when playing True Zenoiran is that your Valor gain is reduced as well. This ends up being a huge problem because Valor skills are much more necessary to a True Zenoiran playthrough right from the start. These skills will be an important part of keeping your unit's stamina and health up thanks to the 5 item limit. Skills like Vitalize, Heal, or even defensive skills like the Hoplite's Fortress will become infinitely more valuable, so finding a way to maximize Valor will be equally valuable. One way to do this is to take up a defensive position and let the continuously spawning enemy units die on you, giving you a Valor bump, or make sure to use Elaine as a leader if you can, since he gets more Valor for every unit he defeats. Aside from these things though, you can also recall unneeded units as well, but the best way to maximize your Valor points will really be to conserve them, and use them only when they will give you a major tactical advantage. Keeping your units alive then also becomes a much more dire situation in True Zenoiran 2, as if a unit is wiped on the battlefield, they are no longer deployable, which is a sort of permadeath. Now, the game does provide you with an item that can revive these fallen units, but it is limited. So winning battles without losing any units becomes a necessary goal as well. This permadeath certainly raises the stakes during battles, making them feel much more intense. While playing at this level, I find myself constantly checking enemy positions and assist ranges while playing much more conservatively, or at least as conservatively as I can considering there's a battle timer. Another thing to keep in mind is that, as I said earlier, the enemy units will do much more damage to your units as well. This requires deep knowledge of your tank classes and their abilities and weaknesses. At True Zenoiran, dodge tanks like Travis will truly shine, preventing damage altogether, but for those shield tank classes, you have to be very careful how you use them. You'll need to cover for their weaknesses or just have them avoid any anti-armor units altogether. Even dodge tanks may need a fighter to protect them from true strike attacks. So what I'm trying to say is that you have to build some redundancy into your units and or avoid less than ideal matchups on the battlefield, as you will be punished severely if you don't. Remember that item use is limited to only 5, so when characters go down, you can't just revive them and heal them with your items. You'll have to garrison them or wait till you have Valor points to use Valor skills on them. Your 5 items should really only be used when you're desperate or executing a very specific strategy that requires them. The next thing I've noticed about True Zenoiran is that you will struggle with unit stamina. Now, if you played on anything tactical or above, I think the amount of stamina is the same for each unit, meaning that some units will have 4, some have 6, but it's the same all across those difficulties. But since enemies hit harder, they can sometimes take out characters in your units, thereby reducing the amount of damage you do to them. Now, I don't know that enemies have any more defense to add to the situation as well, but since it takes more hits on average to kill some enemy units, our stamina gets even further reduced, having to attack these units multiple times. Trading out which unit is on the front line and considering when to use assists becomes all the more important in trying to conserve our stamina. Also, since we can't go crazy with stamina restoring items, often the only way to restore stamina is to have our units rest. This adds in the layer of making sure they are in a safe place to rest, or at least have an allied unit who can protect them. However, having units rest then slows down your advance and the timer can get you. So again, you're really challenged to think much more tactically than on lower difficulties, where in some cases you could just bull rush the objective with some cavalry and win in short order, which is a tactic I love to use on tactical difficulty. So is True Zenoiran hard? Yes. Yes it is. But there is a caveat. See, it is more challenging indeed, but if you master the tactic system and what classes are good in which situations, you can make it look easy. I played through the first few hours of the game on stream and it didn't seem to be too bad, but what everyone didn't see was the 5 or 6 hours I put in before the stream testing out True Zenoiran difficulty and coming up with strategies for each of those battles I fought on stream, except for the last 2. So I think as I continue through, there will be much more trial and error as the types of units I have to combat against will grow. But on the flip side, I'll also begin getting access to more synergies as I go as well. And I really think build optimization will be the name of the game in True Zenoiran difficulty, and I look forward to it. So True Zenoiran is very challenging, but still fair, I think. At this point anyway, ask me again a few more hours in. But what are your thoughts on True Zenoiran? Have you tried it? Are you going to? Leave your answers in the comments and then take a look at this video here. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day and keep on gaming.